and they sent me a shirt that had PEG implants in the shirt, so I could put the shirt on and put the shirt over it, look like I had pecs, and that was good, but they were heavy, so I was like, oh, this is cool, but you know, it's.
Yep,
I did that for a summer, and I put a shirt on and be like, oh, you got pecs. I mean, they're pretty cool. Then I stopped wearing it.
I'll tell you, there's quite a few women that stop wearing their prostheses too because of the weight.
The weight.
Prostheses.
It's like I was working out every day. I'm like, wow, these things are, you know. It's like I was like, yeah, like, woof. I'm like, yeah.
And then radiation. This is a definite if you do have the breast conserving therapy for any reason. Basically, from a recurrence standpoint, the risk of recurrence with a mastectomy is similar to breast conservation plus radiation. So that would have to be added on if they did that. If the larger tumor size or there's lymph node involvement, it's something else that's always considered as well. So it's something that will always be a discussion for those. Chemotherapy or targeted therapy, there's a lot of other new avenues out there. There's CDK4 inhibitors, there's PARP inhibitors. These are more targeted therapies that can be added into treatments, which the advances are wonderful that they have right now. Chemotherapy is usually a definite for those that have what we call triple negative or hormone insensitive breast cancers. Those are best treated with chemotherapy. HER2 positive tumors are chemotherapy, and then those that are more advanced stages also. If it's been spread to lymph nodes or elsewhere, it's always a consideration because we want to treat the whole body and not just the local area. And then endocrine therapy, which is the hormonal therapies that you were referring to earlier. Bosentan tamoxifen is a great option. In terms of risk reduction, not in terms of side effects. But tamoxifen is usually the preferred therapy just because of the way it works in the body. It works a little better than the aromatase inhibitor class of medications, but they can use the aromatase inhibitors. They're definitely there. They may use those with what's called a gonadotropin releasing hormone agonist.
And so after I got done with tamoxifen, I wanted to try something else, and I was on Arimidex. For about a month and a half, I had to get off it because it gave me suicidal tendencies. Yes, okay. I didn't leave my apartment for like 4 weeks, and I remember calling the doctor. It's like, I told him what was happening. He goes, get rid of Arimidex, throw it down your garbage disposal, because I was literally, I thought I was going to kill myself. I had the gun ready and the bullet.
Oh, awful.
And then something triggered in me in my head, so I got rid of the gun. I kept the bullet. I still have the bullet. And I got off Arimidex, and I told him, like, I want to get off all of it. Tamoxifen and Arimidex, I'm done.
Steve, how long was it until you started feeling better mentally?
It took me a year.
Oh.
It took me a year to start feeling myself again. Year, 2 years, and now I feel I'm back to myself. I feel better now than I did before cancer, so I feel like I'm just new.
That's great.
It took a while though.
Yeah.
10 years. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, 5 years ago, I think after 5 years, you get worried because the 5-year marker, and after that, I'm like, it is good.
I hope this gives you hope, Eric.
Well, I mean, it's like I said, the last week and a half is when I just really felt discouraged for the first time. And it's just, it's just, I just know it's going to be, I just cross off, every week, tomorrow will be 9 down,
right.
11 to go, and that's what I got to keep looking at.
What I did was I wrote in a journal.
That's why I'm doing that.
Write it, and I got my frustrations on, even you get the phone calls, write them all down, put all your feelings and your emotions in that. And then every day you write and then do a chapter or whatever. And after your journey, you'll see the progression, and then keep writing. It's like there's your book. That's either you keep it yourself or you share it among people. But that helped me a lot.
Do that. And I talked to, like I said, I'm very involved with AA, and I've had the same sponsor for a long time, and we're very involved. And his wife's pretty, I don't know what kind of nurse she is, but she's up there. And, so like he said, Eric, you educate me every day. He's very strong in his faith and his belief, but, he said, I have no idea what you're going through. And I'm glad he finally said that. It's just, but like I said, the last week and a half, people just keep saying, what can I do to help you? What can I do? What can I bring you? There's nothing right now. There's nothing.
I just tell people just pray.
Huh?
I tell people pray.
And that's what they do.
I'd say just pray. That's all you gotta do. Just pray. Just keep in your thoughts. That's it. You'll get through it.
I will. I know that. It's just peaks and valleys.
Oh, I know. Peaks and valleys.
Yeah. In terms of these therapies, obviously they're not easy to take. A lot of women don't love taking them, but we do know that they help with risk reduction, so they at least are a consideration. I've met men and take care of men that do fine with these and don't notice that they have much different changes. They might have some hot flashes. Which are really fun.
Love those.
Give you a nice little insight into the woman's world.
Yeah.
So much fun.
Oh
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
like I remember sitting down on my couch at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, why am I 450 degrees right now? And I'm like, it's dead of winter. I put my my AC on out at 60 degrees. I had the windows open, and I'm like, man, this feels good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was, and then I got, and then I started putting my sheets and my pillows in the freezer.
Uh-huh.
And then this funny story, I went to get a new mattress like 2 months ago, and they said, hey, we have this Arctic Air mattress. I'm like, where were you 10 years ago? And he goes, it was like $4,000. I would have spent $4,000 in an Arctic mattress because that would have solved all my hot flash problems.
Yeah, so they're not easy to take, and I think that's where, as providers, we have to be really open to talking to our patients about what's going on with all of these different therapies. How are you doing? What can we help with? It's where things like, at least here in CA's, our integrative department can come in handy a lot of times with helping with some of those things. But it's, it's a step-by-step process, and a lot of times tell my patients, well, here are the options. They've talked through usually with their surgeon or their medical oncologist, and then we check in and just say, how are you doing? Call us if you're having issues so that we can make those changes if we need to, or we can help you, hopefully, with some of those side effects, obviously neuropathy and other things you're talking about. But it's, I always tell people that ideal and realistic are not the same thing. There's an ideal scenario in how things are treated in the cancer world, but it's not always realistic for every patient. And so we have to somehow meet our patients in the middle. And I think that a lot of times education is a big part of that. I think patient education is extremely important. I think sometimes if you just explain to somebody why we're doing something and what can happen with it, what to expect, I think that makes a big difference. I think as providers, a lot of times we don't do that very well. We don't always have the time, unfortunately, to sit down a lot of times as long as we'd like to. So these are just some of the generally speaking, treatments that can be available to our patients, especially all of our male breast cancer patients. But again, a lot of it prompts a discussion with your provider on what's going to be best for you in your journey and your breast cancer and your quality of life, which is really important too. And then, obviously, kind of alluded to this a little bit earlier, prevention can be key too. Not everybody has a genetic predisposition, but those that do, we really want to make sure we're getting the education out there and allowing them to take advantage of the fact that they might know and be able to prevent things. For high-risk men, those that have the BRCA mutations, we do have a high-risk clinic here. I know there are several other areas that have that as well available. Making sure they're seeing somebody for a breast exam once a year, if not twice a year. Making sure they know how to do a breast exam, or to at least check when they're in the shower or laying down at night. And then diet and exercise, obviously important in everybody's journey for all of our health, but then especially with cancer, we do know there's been studies to show that especially for breast cancer, that diet and exercise do make a big impact on that. There is also a organization called FORCE. It's Facing Our Risk of Cancer Empowered. They deal with a lot of high-risk patients, those that have a high-risk predisposition to not just breast, but ovarian and other cancers. And so their website is linked on here, but I can forward you guys all these slides too, so you have them. But they do a lot of good job with advocacy, with education, and then they have support groups as well. So they do have a part of that for men with breast cancer. I'm not sure how big their division is here locally, but they do have some education on that. And then I put down some support services. There's not a lot of great ones, unfortunately, for men with breast cancer. And that's, I think, where we're lacking a lot is now that you have this, what do we do? How do we help support you? And that's actually what I was hoping to ask anybody that was here tonight, was how can we better support?
I mean, there are other, I know
And I know you probably knew a few
I know
of them,
his
too.
breast cancer awareness, Male Breast Cancer Coalition.
Are they still around? Because
I
I
don't
couldn't
know.
find any
It's
information
been-
online. I knew
yeah.
it was around for a while, but I
Yeah,
couldn't
and
find recent
then I have my
information.
foundation, which I
Yeah.
don't have.
Protect the Pets.
Protect the Pets. I mean, I should get back into it again, but, there's not many male breast cancer foundations out there. I mean, there are, but it's more an awareness or support,
Mhm.
but that's, they don't raise any funds for research, which I try to. Because I've noticed with a lot of discrimination when it comes between men and women breast cancer foundations, more people will donate to the women's breast cancer. That's why research dollars are not as high researching, the men. But now, American Cancer Society is getting better. So is Komen. Komen for the longest time, it had we were like a footnote.
I know. Unfortunately, the Cincinnati division
it's
is not around.
not
It's
around
closed,
anymore.
Yeah.
So,
They used to do a lot of funding for our imaging for patients.
yeah.
Yeah, I
There's
think
not many.
my question would be too, from a support standpoint, would it be realistic or helpful to have a support group for men in this area? Do you think men would actually come to
No.
an in-person support group?
No.
Or are there better avenues for that?
I tried that for 10 years ago, male breast cancer support, but men, in general, men are afraid to come forward and tell that they have breast cancer because they've seen that's a sign of weakness. But with the Male Breast Cancer Coalition, thousands of men came and told their story. But, when I was going through it, I didn't know who had it. I found out there are celebrities. Who was that guy from Shaft? Ernie Green? I don't know, there was some, the guy from Kiss, the band Kiss, I forgot his name, I'm sorry, but he's a male breast cancer survivor. There are certain celebrities, but they still won't come forward. It's ridiculous, they should come forward, but it's what society did to all of us.
Well, especially given, Cincinnati, the dynamics and how conservative it is too. That puts a whole different spin on it. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's true. I mean, I love the city, but it's,
That's why I go out there and I go on all the news channels and say, yeah, I'm a male breast cancer survivor. I got nothing to hide. I was in a bank recently and they said, oh, you're a male breast cancer survivor? I'm like, yeah. I took off my shirt in the middle of the bank and showed them my scars. They're like, wow. I was like, yeah. And there's a lot of men to this day still don't believe that they can get breast cancer.
right.
I know when I have told certain people about Eric having breast cancer, mostly the men were like, what?
Oh, yeah.
That's possible?
Yeah.
I mean, these are men that are in their 60s.
Yeah.
You'd think that they would have heard of it somewhere along the way.
because I did a speech last Monday at the Fort Thomas Lions Club, 50 guys. And they were shocked. I'm like, if there's breast cancer in your family, if your mom or aunt or anyone in your family has breast cancer, you could be carrying the gene. And they were like, I'm like, what? I'm like, doesn't mean you're gonna get it. It means you can possibly pass that off to your offspring. So all of them said, uh-oh.
Yeah.
And I'm I'm like,
Yeah, we
yeah.
ask people about family history, and a lot of times they're like, well, my mom, my maternal aunt, and I'm like, no, your side and dad's side.
Right.
'Cause there's a lot of preconceived notions that only comes from maternal side, or, oh, the women had it, but I can't get it. Like you said, you know, it's very important, I think, to know your family history. But, yeah, it's a big point.
So I even told, like, when I do speeches, I